What's going on, guys? Matt Wacek here. Welcome back to the channel. I want to share with you today a process that I use to find the locations to target for a pay-per-call offer. So if you don't know what pay-per-call affiliate marketing is, I'll put a link either above or below to a playlist I have here on YouTube with like 75 videos that goes a lot of information in depth with how the whole business model works. But for this video, I want to share with you the process to basically find a location that you can target that's not going to take you too long to rank. I mean, we're talking maybe a month, maybe 2 months, depending on how competitive it is, and how you can basically build a site around this that's going to generate anywhere between $50 to $100, maybe $250, $500 or more a month with one website that you could build out in 1 day's time after doing this research here, which does not take much time at all. So initially, as you can see here on the screen, we're looking at the bundle of cities or zip codes that is covered under this particular plumbing offer. And there are just endless amounts of cities here. I mean, just about every single state in the union is covered on this whole list for this particular network. Some networks only work in certain cities. It just depends on the company that they are working with. If their client is a company that's based in Arizona and they only work in the Phoenix area, then that's going to be the only area where you can target your websites. But our goal with this is not to necessarily target a massive city like Atlanta or something for plumbing, because that's going to be insanely competitive. It's going to take you a lot of time to rank your site. It's going to take you a ton of money to do all the SEO stuff in terms of off-page campaign, which I'm not going to get into in this video because that's a whole nother subject for another topic. But that's going to take a ton of time. When we target these smaller cities, it'll only take a month, maybe two, to get your site ranking, get your GMB ranking, and get traffic coming in, and then getting phone calls coming in and conversions. So the thing that you want to be focusing on is just smaller cities. So essentially, I would go 50,000 population or less. Now, there are two methods that you can go about setting up the format of your website. And this is very important that you pay attention to, because this is what's going to determine essentially how long it's going to take you to rank and the overall difficulty of ranking that site in the particular search that you're targeting. So the most beginner-friendly one, or if you're someone who's a veteran and you know what you're doing, you can build out multiple sites in a day and you just want to just churn and burn, building a one-page site, making things happen, is to do basically an exact match domain or something similar to it. So an exact match domain is basically where you have city, niche, .com or city-state-niche.com or state of the abbreviation. So in this instance, it could be St. Charles AR Plumbing.com. So what that's going to allow you to do is rank a bit better as long as your on-page content is on par, which it has to be. And then when Google crawls your site, it's going to reward it because it realizes, oh, this is the best source for finding a plumber in St. Charles, Arkansas. And so your website's going to rank not only for St. Charles Plumbing, St. Charles AR Plumbing, but St. Charles AR Plumber or plumbing contractor, as long as you mention those terms throughout the site. Same thing if you add in drain clean. Most plumbing contractors are going to offer that service. So mentioning that on the page is going to help you rank for those keywords. So an example of this, and this is the exact reason I built out this site, was to show you guys that this actually works, is if we go over to Champlin Lawn Care, and I'm sure the elephant in the room right now that you see is, okay, the zeros for search volume, 0 for CPC. I'm really taking that data with a grain of salt, because this website that we have has generated about 60 phone calls the past couple months and about 16 or 18 actual contact form submissions that came through, where people, rather than just clicking to call on their phone, they filled out the contact form with their name, email address, phone number, and what services they'd like. So that takes a lot more effort, and that's a lot harder for people to do that. So the fact that they actually took the effort to do that shows that, okay, our site converts and it looks trustworthy and that sort of stuff. So this particular site's about 2 months old at this point in time, and it is currently ranking 8th on this page. And this website is just one single page, with the exception of the thank you page after someone fills this out. And that's optional. I just do it because I like to have that. You don't necessarily have to if you don't want to. But it's a one-page site. If we click on services, it'll just scroll us down here to the area where we have our services. And so what this allows us to do is rank when someone types in mowing or Champlin fertilizing and Champlin spring cleanups, and mentioning different services within the realm of the niche that you're targeting is going to allow your site to rank for those. So if it's a plumbing offer, it'd be plumbing, water heaters, emergency plumbing, 24-hour plumbing, any of the other just little individual services under that niche. That is what you want to include on your site. So as you can see, this is a really simple page to build out. And over the past couple of years and months of seeing what works and what does not when it comes to our sites,
I've been able to see that these small sites that are 1 to 5 pages at most rank way quicker than building one page that's all about a hub city such as like Minneapolis, and then you build 80 different city plus service pages. Unless you have a big SEO budget, they're going to take forever to rank. So these is probably one of the best ways to go about it in terms of beginner friendliness. So the other option that you can do is, just like I mentioned, building a branded site where you build out, you could do something location centric or region specific. So one example could be Midwest Plumbing, for example, or uppermidwestplumbing.com. And then you would build out your pages similar to how just about every other type of contractor builds out their page. They have their about, they have their contact us, they have their services, then they have service area. And on that page is where you contain all of the city plus service pages. So it's essentially a page just like this that is about one particular city that's got all kinds of information, tons and tons of content that's going to help the website visitor learn about the service. And Google's going to see that and realize, okay, yeah, this is a good quality site. Let's help it be found by having it rank higher. And then once the site's indexed and you start to see it climb, you can start sending more and more links to it. However, if you're doing this for multiple cities, it does take more effort. It's going to take more of a budget in order to get it to rank for those multiple cities. And let's say you're targeting something like the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, where you have two very big cities with 300,000 plus people, and then you have 80 or 100 cities around it. A lot of those cities have 30, 40, 50,000 people, and it's going to take a lot of time to rank. So if you're targeting cities that are between your 5, 10, 15, up to maybe 30,000 population, it's not going to take that much time to rank, as long as you just follow the simple steps in terms of the good on-page and good quality off-page. In many instances, that's all it's going to take is basic off-page like citations, social signals. You wouldn't even necessarily maybe need PBN links. So anyways, those are the two different formats that you can go with. For choosing multiple locations, if you're maybe not doing a massive metro area style site, because I really wouldn't recommend that unless you're someone who's a veteran that has a budget to be able to put towards ranking multiple pages at the same time, and that's going to take a lot of effort and resources on your end in order to make that happen. So if you're a beginner and you want to maybe rank for multiple cities, I'd recommend going through the list of all the cities that are covered under your network's offer. So for this instance, we have St. Charles, Arkansas. This is just a random city. And then what you can do is just plug in each one of these cities. And yes, it is time consuming, but you can also just look through the map. And let's say you want to have within a 10, 15 mile radius of the one city, you want to build out maybe 6 or 10 pages aside from the main city, which I would recommend having the homepage be about the largest city that you are targeting. So I know that this is right near Pine Bluff, which is a decently sized city. I think the population's around 30,000 on this one. So you'd want to maybe build it around Pine Bluff and have these other neighboring cities. You basically want to take some of these neighboring cities. So for example, we have Stuttgart here. You go over to your list to see if it's covered. And yes, it is covered. So there you go. You could build a city plus service page. So you'd have the homepage be all about Pine Bluff, and you'd have one of your city pages be about Stuttgart, and you'd have another one about St. Charles. And then some of these other cities that are around there, you just keep checking back. Okay, so is Atkins Lake covered? Let's just see if it's covered. Atkins Lake. No, it's not. And so since Atkins Lake is not covered, which who knows, I mean, if a call comes through, that company may still service that area, because they, of course, they go up to Stuttgart and they do Pine Bluff, so why wouldn't they go in between? Either way, whatever. But what you want to do is basically just be checking through the service area where you want to target on Google Maps and just look at the locations and just check back to see if it is covered. For example, there's this town here called Elmira, and it's right here on the list. And I know a lot of people ask, well, how do I tell, or how do I find the most profitable niches, most profitable of anything? And the thing about it is that these cities, for example, this Elmira is a tiny town of 283 people. So I'm willing to bet there's hardly any competition in that city. So what you could do is probably rank with one city plus service page and no links, just good on-page content with 400 to 500 words worth of it on there, and it will probably rank on the first page as soon as it's indexed or really close to it. Now, that might not generate more than a few calls a month from that one particular city, but it only took you maybe an hour at most to build out that page, and it's pretty much, as long as Google is existing and you don't do anything crazy with your website and cause a penalty, you're going to have that result right there for a long time. Now, I would not recommend doing an exact match keyword type of focus on this small city. What I would do though is maybe do Stuttgart here, which is 9,300 people, so it's not exactly a big city, but you could do maybe StuttgartARplumbing.com, and you could mention that we service Elmira, we service Lodge Corner, another looks like a small town, 100 or unincorporated, so just tiny city, and just mention it on the page that you serve those cities, and you'll probably end up ranking that page for it because you mention it on there, and it's such a small city that there's hardly any competition going for it. So there are a few different ways to go about it. You can do the exact match, where if you wanted to maybe rank for just PineBluffARplumbing.com, you could do that. And if you are a beginner, brand new to this, I would really stick with anywhere between 5,000 to 25, 30 at most. The good spot's going to be between like 5 to 15,000 people in a population to target for your first website, just to get your feet wet, so to speak, and get things working. But then from there, what you want to do to scale up and scale out is you don't really want to focus on building one site that's going to make you $5,000 a month, because that's going to take a lot of time to rank. Like I mentioned, like trying to target a big metropolitan area like Atlanta and all the big cities that are around there. You're going to want to just build 10 of these sites or 15 of these sites, and it really shouldn't take you more than a month and a half or so of doing this research that we just did here, scouting out just smaller cities and building a site around them in a day or two's time if you're a beginner, or if you're someone who is a veteran, you could do multiple of these one-page sites in a day, or if you wanted to target maybe one bigger city, then a bunch of smaller cities around it with city plus service pages. It might take you a day or two to build out those if you are a veteran. It might take you a few days if you're a beginner, but once you have that site built, that's the thing about the internet, is that you have it built and it's there for pretty much ever. And then you're able to start doing your off-page stuff, getting your citations, social signals, and doing everything else. And then you move on to the next one. You move on to the next, and you just basically do the same thing, just churn and burn. And you create a system where you take a niche, your offer, find a location, and build a site around it, and do this in a couple days time, and just churn and churn and churn and churn. We do this with focused work. Before you know it, you're going to have a big portfolio of sites. So it's going to take effort. Yes, you're going to have to work at it, but it's going to pay off greatly. You build a site that generates you $200 a month, and you do 10 of those, that's going to be $2,000 a month with about $120 in hosting costs, and your monthly expenses for SEO might max out at about $300 to $500 at most. So you're essentially profiting roughly $1,000 to $1,500 a month on autopilot, and you can still then scale from there and continue, or you could target bigger cities and bigger websites if you wanted to do that. So really the sky's the limit, but just getting the foundation and getting the fundamentals, which is getting the one-page site built and just going from there and scaling up and out, is how you want to go about it. So with that said, hopefully you guys like this type of content. I'd appreciate it if you did like this to go down below, drop a like on the video, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, be sure to go down below, smash that subscribe button. And if you want to get more training just like this and a whole lot more in depth than I could show in just one single YouTube video, I invite you to check out our live training that we do periodically, which there's a link to join right down below in the description, and I will see you there. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.